Stacktastic, the weekly web show for the avid comic book reader and those who aspire to become so. Now, last week I did an episode on 2 new comic book shows coming to network television in fall 2013, but you were more concerned about Saturday morning cable TV, or more accurately, DC Nation on Cartoon Network. See, that very morning, news had broke that neither Green Lantern the Animated Series nor Young Justice were on the network's 2013-2014 lineup, instead replaced by a chibi version of Teen Titans Go and Beware the Batman. Bombarded by inquiries and fan mail, Cartoon Network tried to stall all week, but it has now been confirmed that both shows are not merely on hiatus, but canceled. Many of you have been asking for my thoughts on this, and I have indeed mulled it over, as well as watched one of the last Young Justice episodes ever just this Saturday morning. Hey, at least we got to see Static Shock. So let's dissect the demise of Young Justice, plus my usual recommendations for what comics to pick up or download this week. Let's get started. Yeah, I'm bummed, but I have to say, not too bummed. As I noted in my review of Before the Dawn just last month, I've grown tired of Young Justice's stops and starts, both in terms of when it airs as well as its disjointed and drawn-out invasion storyline. The show's second season, in my mind, was an ambitious experiment that has failed and should serve as a warning to other comic book shows and movies. Check out my new video on Marvel Phase 3 for more on that. So what exactly do I think went wrong with Young Justice? First of all, I think that setting the show in an alternate universe was a huge mistake and in retrospect doomed the series from the start. DC Comics is a business, and a show that doesn't tie into the main universe at large, not just story-wise, but the comics, movies, and other TV shows, ultimately isn't going to be valuable to the company. And while I know Young Justice has gotten many of you interested in comics, obviously not enough of you, because Cartoon Network would not cancel a successful show. That's a hard yet important truth to accept here. And again, because Young Justice takes place in an alternate universe, even though it did get you interested in DC Comics, you didn't know where to start, as evidenced by many of your comments to me. I mean, there is a Young Justice comic that just launched, written by series creator Greg Weisman, but I have to tell you, it's not very good, and largely for the same creative choices that have hindered Season 2. Yes, Young Justice's second mistake was to expand its cast for Season 2. Sure, it's fun to see our favorite DC superheroes on the show, but it took the focus off of our original cast while not putting that focus really on anyone else. In the past few episodes, the show has tried to shift that focus to Blue Beetle, but while I know he has his core fans, he's not a popular enough character to carry the show. He can't even carry his own comic, which was also recently just canceled. And then there was the show's third and final mistake, the 5-year leap forward. I think the leap could have worked if Season 2 had been all about exploring what had happened during that time period. But instead, the questions presented at the very beginning of the season were left hanging, akin to the worst elements of Lost. So yes, Young Justice is being canceled, but I feel the show many of us fell in love with didn't make it past Season 1. But these things happen. Greg Weisman is a great storyteller and shouldn't be faulted for trying to do something new and different with Young Justice. And I'm sure he'll be back with another great series soon, to which he can apply the lessons he's hopefully learned with Young Justice. Because to blame Cartoon Network, at least in this instance, I feel would be a mistake. I'd also like to quickly touch on DC Animation as a whole, as I feel they also have some lessons to learn. I'm beginning to get the impression that Warner Brothers is turning the division into an extension of their publicity department, rushing out sloppy, subpar adaptations of comics instead of the original series that piqued our interest in the first place. I think nobody can argue that the recent DC animated movies are anywhere near the quality of Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, or the Wonder Woman animated movie. And I'm not just talking story, but the quality of the actual animation as well. Even the 2 new series coming to DC Nation seem more like advertisements for upcoming movies or toys, rather than entertainment that can stand on its own. Warner Brothers Animation was the one field you were still trumping Marvel in outside of comics. Just leave it alone. Okay, so let's cheer up with some awesome comics. An alternate universe that's not in danger of cancellation is Earth 2, which this week introduces its own version of Dr. Fate. In fact, as supernatural powers debut on Earth 2, a whole host of characters will be popping up. So if Justice League Dark and Demon Knights aren't enough of a mystical fix for you, check it out. Next, DC is hoping the third creative team will be the charm for Green Arrow, as Jeff Lemire takes over with issue number 17. But I don't know, at this point it's going to take a lot for the Emerald Archer to overshadow his Lavender doppelganger over in the Marvel Universe, as Matt Fraction has definitely hit the bullseye. Not reading Hawkeye? Start. Then romance is in the air, literally, with DC Comics' Valentine's Day special, as all your favorite superheroes hook up, from Superman and Wonder Woman to Batman and Catwoman to Apollo and Midnighter. And over at Marvel, the Vision comes front and center for Avengers Assemble Annual #1, where things are not so good for our favorite android. Seems like he and Wanda made a good couple for a reason. Now this week also happens to see the debut of a number of cool indie comics as well. Image has two with Son of Merlin #1, where science and magic collide for a young MIT professor, and Dia de los Muertos, a 3-issue miniseries featuring short stories inspired by the Mexican Day of the Dead. Wow, that holiday is getting a lot of love, with Pixar developing its own Dia de los Muertos movie. Next, over at Dynamite, there's Garth Ennis' Red Team, where an elite NYPD narcotics team decides to take the law into their own hands, which is never a good idea for the protagonist, yet almost always entertaining for the audience. Finally, Boom Studios continues to bring in major talent as Paul Jenkins and Humberto Ramos debut Fairy Quest, which seems to be Fables meets Adventure Time meets cool 1980s animated movies like The Secret of NIMH and The Black Cauldron. And that's this week's Stacktastic. I'm Grace Randall for Think About the Ink. I hope to see you back on Friday for Between the Pages. Until then, happy reading.